Hey Reddit, what's your holy I've been on the wrong side of things for so long story? I used to be staunchly against psychiatric medication. Thought it poisoned the mind and turned people into passive sheep, etc. I was also severely depressed with bipolar disorder, refused medication for years because of my beliefs, and I also felt it would be a moral failing on my part if I succumbed to big pharma and took the meds. Then I had a baby, and postpartum depression hit me like a stone. I was non-functional, and my child was suffering for it. Seeing that my mental issues were hurting my child forced me to finally seek help. I swallowed my pride, talked to my doctor, and started the long journey of cycling through medications to find one that works. Started with a generic antidepressant. Within 1 week, I was up and around, doing things. I could breathe more easily. I felt lighter. And everything was literally brighter, like a literal gray cloud had been lifted off my face. That was the moment I realized how much I had been depriving of myself by being anti-medication. I'm now a vocal advocate for psych meds. They aren't perfect, but they helped me put my life back together. I was stupid and stubborn to refuse them for so long. Edit. Wow. I'm shocked and overwhelmed by the responses here. I originally tried to respond to every comment, but it's impossible at this point because there are hundreds. It's wonderful to know that I'm not alone. Know that you're not alone either. For everyone who has said I've inspired them to talk to their doctor, I am so incredibly happy, and I'm proud of you all for ripping off that Band-Aid. The first step is the hardest. I really did cry while reading some of the comments here. Your support means the world to me. I removed the reference to the specific drug I used first, because people were accusing me of being a corporate shill. My post is not supposed to be about the individual specific medications, it's about ending the stigma surrounding taking them.
Story 2. I had the classic nice girl syndrome. I was overweight, had braces, glasses, and a terrible haircut. I despised all the girls in my class who were hooking up and going to parties, and how dare they go out and enjoy themselves when I was so miserable. I developed this toxic, self-righteous mindset of, well, they're all just for the streets, and I'm a good girl that is waiting for the right man. I was in complete denial, when I know full well that I would have been doing the same if I had the opportunity to. Losing weight, exercising, and being diagnosed with bipolar disorder, as well as just growing out of my teenage years, helped with me realizing that I was actively pushing people away. People don't owe me shit. I'm glad I'm not the entitled victim I was back then.
Story 3. Using a throwaway for reasons I'll explain later. My mom is a massive conspiracy theorist, especially on the case of vaccines. My little brother, who is 3 years younger, has autism, and you can guess what happened. As I grew older and became exposed to other thoughts on the subject via the internet, I quickly learned how batshit anti-vaccination is. Nowadays, I completely believe vaccines are good and important, and once I'm old enough and self-sufficient to move out, I'm gonna go and catch up on all the jabs I've missed over the years. My mum is a lovely person and a great parent, but nowadays, I don't even want to talk to her because every conversation turns into an opportunity to spout her bullshit, so I'm not using my main account. Because if she ever looks at it and sees this post, we are gonna have a big fight, and I don't want to go through with that. Edit. Well, maybe I should have used my main account, because this has triple the upvotes my main had combined. Thanks for the karma, and keep spreading the word. Edit 2. Well, fuck it, this is gonna be my main from now on whenever my mum's not around. Thanks for all the great replies, guys. Story 4. Reading Robert Caro's The Years of Lyndon Johnson made me give up on political idealism. For years, I liked politicians who tell it like it is and are outspoken about big ideas. I thought that the whole country should listen to these loud political figures, and that everyone who disagrees with them is a shill who's selling us out because they aren't idealistic enough. Caro's books bashed into my head that the most successful politicians are pragmatists who know how to read a political room and use unorthodox and sometimes aggressive tactics to push for change. They're the people who make deals across the aisle and continually search for some kind of common ground that builds to what they want. Idealists can be nice, but they rarely accomplish anything because they alienate all of their colleagues. Story 5. My love life. I was an obnoxious douche most of high school and first half of college. I only ever saw women around me as things to be chased. I was shallow and depressed and couldn't for the life of me figure out why no girls were ever interested in me. But naturally, I gave most, if not all, of my self-worth over to my relationship status. My grades suffered. I went into cycles of rejection, woe is me, new girl to chase, repeat, and it felt like I didn't get as much done in college as I could have. My social life suffered, and I genuinely regret letting it go as far as it did, because I was surrounded by amazing people in college. People who still put up with me to this day for God only knows what reasons. Most importantly, I straightened up and started flying right like a month before I met my future wife. I genuinely believe if I hadn't, she wouldn't be with me today. I would have ruined it like I did with everything else.
Story 6. I grew up in a very religious, very conservative household. It was very much the stereotypical Republican kind of house. Fox News, God, guns, admittedly and ashamedly racist and bigoted. I even remember voting for Bush because I legitimately bought into the I'd rather have a beer with Bush than Gore nonsense. I cried during Passion of the Christ. I believed the Earth was several thousand years old. I believed evolution was an incomplete idea. My only excuse was that I was young, stupid, and raised by people who never looked far enough out to see what I'd eventually see. It was about 2 or 3 years into Bush's second term when my fiancé left me. I don't blame her honestly, but the breaking up process showed her to be so fucked up, I mean next level dangerous type of crazy, that she more or less broke my mind. What she put me through was so awful and evil that it actually shook my faith in God. I could not reconcile how God can exist if she does too, but there was no way to deny she was real. God, on the other hand. I went through the many stages of Job's tribulations before deciding that there's either no God or he does exist but doesn't give a shit about us. I settled ultimately on there being no God because it's an incompatible idea that a being of pure good could not care. The Bible and the part about evil being a necessary punishment or curse God had to subject us to is indefensible. He's fucking God. He could just simply not do that. He can choose not to be butthurt about rigging the world to be awful and having to sacrifice his son himself. He could just choose not to make things that way. It just didn't add up anymore one day. Anyway, this change affected my politics. So much of my politics was based on my religion, anti-gay marriage, etc., etc. When faith was removed, I could not come up with any other reason to be against things like abortion or gay rights. I tried. It's not easy accepting that the two things which most define you were just undeniably wrong. I remember the campaigns of Obama and McCain, and how utterly incompetent McCain seemed. I loved this guy. My God, I mean, what more could someone want from a Republican? Bush hobbled him, but he might as well have been George Washington to me. But as the campaigns went on, it was such a stark policy contrast that I just couldn't fathom how I was able to justify conservative ideas previously. Like, there are facts available about this stuff, and it's overwhelmingly supportive of traditionally liberal ideas. And then Sarah Palin and I was just dumbfounded. How had I ever walked this way? And so in maybe 2 years, I went from blindly supporting Republicans to actively opposing every single one of them, not necessarily in support of Democrats. It's possible to dislike one without worshiping the other. Crazy, I know. Story 7, I was instantly hard on the side of leave when they started talking about Brexit. I was already thinking immigrants were coming to the country and taking all the jobs because it's cheaper for employers to hire them. Because those immigrants come from countries where their money ain't worth squat. And 1 quid to them is like a million quid to us. So they wouldn't even think to ask for a raise, even if they were doing well. And I thought Brexit would put a stop to that and keep the power in Westminster where it belongs. Britain knows what is best for Britain and all that. Then I went and got myself a Romanian girlfriend. Having her in my life obviously made me start to question my logic behind supporting Brexit. Oh man, and all the lies of the Leave campaign that came out after the result. 350 mil a week for the NHS. My ass. And it's not really going to help with immigration. Did we really think us leaving the EU is going to stop migrants from coming in if they really want to? Plus, a good portion of them aren't even from the EU to begin with. Also, it turns out the EU had some plans in the pipeline to help reduce immigrants coming into its, and by extension, the UK's borders, had we voted to stay. Britain is just being an entitled prick, thinking the rest of the EU will serve its special treatment on a silver platter, and is now throwing a temper tantrum because it can't have its way. The whole thing is frickin' retarded. Brexit needs to be stopped now.